Hi, this is Debbie from Organic Oasis in California, Zone 9B. Today, I'm going to be making a butternut squash soup. I have another butternut squash soup recipe that I have made a video about, but it's different, very different, a different type of soup, and it has shrimp in it, which is really an interesting combination. This soup is just butternut squash soup. I'm not a big creamy soup person, so there's no dairy in the soup. It's all going to be just water based with the different vegetables, the butternut squash, and lots of spice and herbs and onion. So hopefully you'll like this recipe and it'll turn out delicious. But I wanted to show you some of the different varieties that I grew of the butternut squash. So everybody knows the Waltham butternut. This is the largest butternut that I've grown. I grow this every year. Um, it doesn't get a lot of, you don't get a lot of these butternuts on each plant though. This one here, I can just quickly read the seed description. Basically, this one says 85 days to harvest. So this one. The only complaint I have about growing these big ones is that like I said, you don't get a lot off of each plant. So you need to grow more than one plant. The next one I have, which is similar, let me show you. It's similar to the Waltham, the big one, but this is a miniature. It's a smaller version. And this one is the Burpees Butterbush. And this one here it's more of a dwarf, early maturing Waltham butternut. It grows 2 to 4 pound fruit. And this one, you do get a lot more squash off of each plant. This one, it doesn't tell me how many days it takes to grow it. It says it's early maturing and the vines only get 3 feet long. And it says it produces 4 to 5 fruit off of each plant. To be honest, I got more than 4 to 5 this last summer. But it wasn't really early maturing. I mean, they both kind of matured about the same time. I didn't save a lot of time in this. I still harvested it at the same time as my larger one. But it did get more of the fruit. So 5, and like I said, I got more. Whereas this bigger one, whenever I grow these, I don't get as many off of the plant. The next ones I grow honeyboat delicata, which these are great. The size is nice. This one here, it is just basically says it's one of the sweetest ones. And again, it doesn't tell how long that it takes to harvest. It doesn't give me much information on this package, but I can tell you, I also got quite a few delicatas this last summer. They're awesome. They're delicious fruit. And each plant, I would say I get at least more than 5 of the fruits off of each plant. And the last one that I have left, I've almost eaten up all of them, is this little honey nut. And as you can see, this is really little compared to the delicata. And these are little mini squashes. And it only takes that's 100 days. And they're 4 to 5 inches long. And they're single serving size. And again, it doesn't give you a time to harvest it, but I got a lot of these. Again, though, they're little, right? And this was one of the smaller ones. I pulled it off at the very end when I was pulling the plant. So they're a little bit bigger than this. They're actually probably more half the size of this delicata. Most of them were bigger than this, but I got these pretty much after a few months. I started pulling them off the plant, and I probably got maybe 15 or 20 of these little guys off of the plant. They all can be used in your butternut squash soup. So any of these, whichever ones you grow, they're interchangeable. They all taste about the same. So I find that if I mix them up in whatever I'm making, I just weigh it out and I mix them up in my food that I make, and they all taste pretty much the same. I haven't seen a huge difference in the flavor. So, you may want to experiment with growing different types of butternut. They're all fun. The little ones are cute. And, you know, if you want to make single servings, these are great for entertaining. If you're making like a little butternut squash dish where each person gets their own little butternut squash. Um, I usually make soups and things where I'm cutting them up and throwing them into things. The only reason why I fool around with different types is because I'm always trying to find one that I can get more harvest off of it and I can get them quicker. And so far, I'm still basically, I may stop growing these because they're just, as you can see, they're so small. I'm really loving the butter bush. I like the size and they grow quicker than the big Waltham. And I still do like the honey boat delicatas. These are awesome too, and they also grow quick. So anyway, but good luck growing your winter squash this summer. And let's move on to the butternut soup recipe. So the first thing I am going to do to make this butternut squash soup is to put a couple tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil into my pot. And they recommend a 5.5 quart Dutch oven. I'm using my caraway pot, which I absolutely love. This was my splurge to myself, and I just love it. I use my Dutch oven for sourdough bread, and I just kind of trashed my Dutch oven, my cast iron Dutch oven, making sourdough bread. So I bought this for making soups and things like that. So I'm going to put this on the oven and just get it heating up. Now I'm going to take my one large yellow onion. I'm going to chop it up. We're going to add the onion to this pan that's heating up with hot oil, olive oil. So now that we have the onion here in the pan that's heating up with the olive oil, we're just going to saute this onion for about 5 to 8 minutes. We're going to put in a 1/4 cup of, or half a teaspoon of sea salt. I have my sea salt here. And you just take your pepper and just put in a little bit of pepper. I'm going to just put in some fresh ground pepper here. And my pepper grinder is a Colin Mason, and I absolutely love this. I want to get the salt one, but I just haven't gotten around to getting it yet. So we're going to let this go and just saute it until the onion gets nice and soft, about 5 to 8 minutes. The onion is sauteing in the pot, and so now I'm going to go ahead and peel, seed, and cube the butternut squash. So I'm just going to use my peeler and go down and peel. You can also you can quickly microwave the squash. I've actually never done it that way, but you can microwave it and the skin is supposed to come off easier. I don't mind just doing it this way. This peeler I'm using though is supposed to be self-sharpening. And so every time I close it, it's supposed to sharpen the blade. So I think in order to make this easy, it's better to make sure you have a nice sharp peeler. Or you could use a little peeling knife if you have one. All of the peel will go right into our compost. So when I'm going to get the seeds out of my butternut squash, I've struggled a little bit with using a spoon, which it just seems like it works on some squash, but it doesn't work on others. And it takes a long time. It's kind of tedious. And I've also used knives, paring knives, to cut it out and like do a V shape. But now I'm trying my lemon zester, and it actually works pretty good. I started just trying that. I was thinking I need to I thought, has anyone made a tool for doing this? This would be a great startup idea to make a tool to get the seeds out of your winter squash. So I looked through all my different gadgets I have, and I found my lemon zester. And you know, it's actually working really well to scrape out this, the inside of the butternut squash. And I guess the other thing is when you carve pumpkins, you can buy those little pumpkin carving kits, and they come with all kinds of scrapers. Those probably work really well too. I didn't really think about that before. Yeah, see how nice, how quick this is working with this little lemon zester. Much better than a spoon. Much quicker. So now we need to cut up the squash and cube it. Again, you need a very sharp knife for this. As I cube this, I'm going to move it right into my pan, my pot that's sitting on the stove right here with the onion in it, sauteing. I'm just going to go ahead and move this right in. So now we have the butternut squash in the pot, and we're going to go ahead and saute this until the squash gets soft, and it should take about 8 to 10 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit more olive oil on here, and I'm going to turn up the heat. And I'll be actively stirring this for the 10 minutes to kind of move the butternut squash around and make sure it all gets evenly cooked. So the pot is heating up. So we'll just saute this for about 10 minutes, and then we'll test out the squash and make sure it's cooked and soft and softened throughout. The butternut squash has been sauteing for about 10 minutes, and it is softening up. You can see too that the color has changed a little bit, and you can see it's definitely softened. Next, we're going to go ahead and put in 3 garlic cloves. And I use the Kirkland garlic, and I'm just going to put in like a half a teaspoon like this, more like a half a heaping teaspoon for every clove of garlic it calls for. So that's 1, 2, 3. But I like garlic, so if you don't like garlic, you would not want to put in this much, or you could leave it out altogether. It calls for 1 tablespoon of chopped fresh sage. Now, I do not have any herbs growing in my garden. I have chives growing right now, and that's about all the herbs I have growing out in my garden right now. So my basil and everything is gone, and I just have some dehydrated herbs in my house. So I'm going to have to use what I have. So right now, instead of a tablespoon of chopped fresh sage, I'm going to put in 1 teaspoon of dry sage. So this is a half teaspoon. So I'm putting in 1 teaspoon of dehydrated sage in place of the 1 tablespoon. So when I was doing my research, basically, if a recipe calls for fresh herbs and you're using dehydrated, dried, or powdered, you would use 1/3 of what is required for fresh. So instead of 1 tablespoon of fresh sage, I'm using 1 teaspoon. It calls for a half a tablespoon of minced fresh rosemary. So I'm going to use, actually, I have no rosemary, unfortunately. I ended up pulling my rosemary plant because it had these frog hopper bugs on it, and I couldn't get rid of them organically. So I had to pull my rosemary, and I plan to try planting it either this year or next year. And hopefully the frog hoppers won't come back. Okay, so no rosemary for me. A teaspoon of grated fresh ginger. So I'm going to put in a 1/4 teaspoon of powdered ginger. So 1/4 teaspoon of powdered ginger, and this is a half a teaspoon. So I just put in a half of this. So instead of a teaspoon of grated fresh ginger, it's 1/4 teaspoon of dehydrated or powdered ginger. And that's it. So we'll stir this all up. So basically it's sage, it's garlic, sage, rosemary, and ginger. And you can just mix it all up. Now next, it calls for 3 to 4 cups of vegetable broth. Now here's my bad. I don't have vegetable broth. I used up all my canned vegetable broth. I no longer purchase chicken broth for just health issues. And so I'm just going to use water, filtered water. So I have 2 cups of water, filtered. The recipe calls for 3 cups right now, and then there'll be another cup added if necessary at the end. And here's my 3rd cup. And so now all we're going to do is stir it all up. We're going to bring it to a boil. So I'm going to turn up the heat to high. Now, using water in this recipe I think will be okay. And the reason why is we already have our onion in here, our garlic, we have sage and ginger, we have salt and pepper. So we have herbs, we have spices. If you have chicken broth in your house or bone broth, you could add that. If you want to keep this vegetarian, and you don't have vegetable broth, then just add water. I think the way I look at things, keep things simple. Don't stress out over it. Don't run to the store and look for vegetable broth. I actually went to the store yesterday and actually looked at vegetable broth. And you know what? I couldn't buy it because it had so many additives that it had stuff in it that shouldn't be there. And that's my opinion. But I thought about it. I could add purified water. I would add my own canned vegetable broth, but I'm not going to buy vegetable broth that's low quality or has additives in it that I don't understand why they're there. So this is why I'm choosing to use water. And I know this soup will still be delicious. I'm going to go ahead and bring the heat down. Put a lid back on it, and we're going to cook this for about 20 to 30 minutes until the squash is completely soft and ready to be pureed. The soup is ready. It's been cooking for 20 minutes. I cooked it for 20, and the squash is nice and tender. And I was busy preparing some sourdough corn muffins to go with this soup. So I kind of left it sitting for a while, and it's warm, but it's not boiling hot. So I decided I'm going to go ahead, and I have a choice. You can use an immersion blender at this point, or you can put it in your blender, your kitchen blender. I happen to have a Vitamix 5200 I've had for years, and you can blend it in your actual blender. So because this pan is, my new pot is so nice, I don't want to use the immersion blender in it because I don't want to scratch it or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and transfer this into my Vitamix, and we will puree it. If it's too thick, we'll add we have 1 more cup of water that's optional to add. So if it's a little too thick, I'll add it up to another cup of water. And if it's just right, I won't add any water at all. I have the soup in the Vitamix, and I'm going to go ahead and start pureeing it. Start on low. So this definitely is going to need more water. So I'm going to go ahead and slowly start adding the water through the top. I'm going to go ahead and just add another half teaspoon of salt because I think it's going to kick up the butternut flavor a little bit more. And I'm going to add a little bit more pepper. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and just puree it for another maybe minute. And then because it's cooled off a little, I'm going to put it back into my pot and heat it back up a little bit before we eat it for dinner. So while I'm heating the butternut squash soup back up, I'm going to be toasting some pepitas, lightly toasting pepitas. And so here's my pepitas here. I don't know if pepitas are like unshelled pumpkin seeds. And I'm toasting them, and I just have this little Dash toaster oven. And I bought it because I was downsizing all my machines in the kitchen because I have so many different machines that I use. And so to save space, I bought this teeny tiny toaster oven. It almost looks like a little child's plaything. But anyway, it's great for doing little jobs like this, like toasting nuts really quick or heating just up something that you need to heat up quick, some kind of pastry or something. But you do have to be careful about over browning it. So it does have a timer on it. And it's probably better to go ahead and put it on, like if you have one of these, just put it on like 2 minutes so it'll turn off by itself. I've burnt a lot of things in this little oven because I've turned it all the way up and then it ended up burning because it gets hot and cooks super quick. Wow, so the soup has been pureed in my blender and I put it back in the pot to heat it up and it's perfect temperature to start eating it. So I'm going to plate it up here. I'm putting it in these cute little bowls my sister bought for me years ago. They're soup cups. Tim and I are not that hungry tonight. We're just going to have a little bit of soup, and I made some sourdough corn muffins, which we'll each just have one with it. We had a late lunch, so we're just really not hungry. Okay. So here we go with our 2 little bowls of soup. And I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of dehydrated parsley. I can't wait to get my garden growing again and get all my herbs and everything going. But pretty much everything, we're in a winter state here where it's been cold and raining, and I've kind of been a little lazy to start planting again. But it's time to do it. I just need to do it. Here's the pepita seeds I browned and toasted. Sprinkle a little bit of those on as much as you want. And now it's time to test it out and try it out. The butternut squash soup is finished. And I'm going to be serving it in my cute little soup cups. And the color is just orange. And with the pepita seeds and the parsley, it just looks so pretty. And it's so nourishing. It's vegetarian the way that I made it. If you added chicken broth to it, it wouldn't be vegetarian. But I didn't add any meat or dairy to this soup. A lot of the butternut squash soups, they add cream. They add a lot of butter and cream to it. And I'm not into those real creamy, heavy soups. This one, I just like that I added water. And as you can see, the consistency is still really creamy. It's delicious. It's hot, it's creamy. It's heavy because it's creamy. It's like creamy, but it's light because it doesn't have all the fat and the cream in it. But it's really, really delicious. You can really taste the butternut. Now, I have only made my butternut soup with our homegrown organic butternuts from our garden. And the soups have turned out delicious. I have never gone to a grocery store and bought butternut and made the soups. So I don't know how those would turn out, but you can certainly do that. You'd probably better off going to a farmer's market and trying to buy something locally grown. But you can certainly use the butternut squash that you buy in the grocery store. I just don't know what happens with the flavor when it sits for a long time, and I don't know how long they sit in the grocery store. Butternut squash, it does sit for a long time. Even me, I harvested mine in the summer, and I'm just eating it now. But it's been kind of protected, and it's been in one place in a controlled environment. So with the grocery stores, depending on the grocery store, I'm not sure how the butternut is handled, what temperature it's kept and things like that. But you can certainly make this soup with any butternut squash, and it would be, I think, worth trying out. Now, it's suggested that the soups be served with a crusty bread, and I do a sourdough also. But I have one playlist on our channel about sourdough, but it's not organically grown from our garden, so I haven't focused on it that much. This recipe, though, it does suggest that you use a crusty bread or corn bread. And I went ahead and I do sourdough. So this is sourdough corn muffins that I made to go with it. It's a great book that I love, and it's called The Perfect Loaf. And all my sourdough comes from that author, and his name's Mario or Mauricio, I think. And anyway, it's The Perfect Loaf, and it's his book. It's wonderful. And so this was a recipe for a cornbread made in a cast iron skillet in the oven. But he also had an alternate that you could try it in muffins like this. So this is the sourdough discard recipe, cornbread muffins, and you need 200 grams of sourdough fresh or sourdough discard to make these. So Tim and I are just going to have these muffins with this soup, and it's going to be delicious. I hope I will post all the recipes. I'll even post the recipe for the muffins if you'd like to make the muffins to go with it. If you'd like me to start growing my sourdough playlist, comment on that, because I'm sort of developing more of our organic garden and cooking with organic ingredients. But if you want more of my sourdough recipes, just let me know, and I will make more. When I make stuff, I'll post it on YouTube. Other than that, I will definitely post this recipe, and I highly recommend it. It's so good. And if you're a vegetarian, it's wonderful and perfect. And even if you're not, and you're like, I don't want this, it doesn't have enough protein, go ahead and put in chicken soup. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to our channel and comment and share any great butternut squash recipes you have, because I'm always looking for some. Thank you so much.